Yeah. All right. So, Kim's going to take a little time off, and I don't know how long I'm going to be here. And I have a study, but I'm not kicking that study off today. So today I put together one of. So give me a second. What is that? We move forward. We took these group of kids to ice skating the other day. Dwight, you ever been ice skating? Were you decent at it when you were younger? I mean, could you skate?
Yeah. Yes.
A little bit. We took, Lindsay went with us, I don't know, 60-ish kids to the ice rink up in Moses the other day. And one of the things we try to do at Young Life, good morning, Gary, we try to intentionally set up questions on the way to any event that we take these kids to. Just to kind of build that rapport, that connection. And Lindsay, do you remember what the questions were?
Do you have any traditions?
Yep.
Forget the second one.
Embarrassing or memorable moment on ice.
That's right. But none of mine in my car have ever done ice skating before. So they didn't have it. And
Yeah.
then the last one was from the time Athena who talked at Young Life. That's been nice.
When they get out of
So I
it.
asked them what they,
Yeah.
talked about that.
The first question that Lindsay said is, ask kids like, what do you do? What's your tradition? Christmas. And I don't know about your van load, Lindsay, but I had a huge group. All the way back like 4 rows. Just big what do you call it? HTA or worker van.
Oh.
And it's really interesting to hear just some of it was cultural. Like some of the kids talked about at midnight, Christmas Eve, I guess Christmas morning. Boom, that's the time for gifts. And others talked about the type of food they had. One family, they talked about they always do Chinese on Christmas Day. Another family said they ordered round table. I was like, are they even open Christmas Day? I don't know how we get it, but we get it every year. It was just really interesting. And it got me thinking more and more about the topic I was going to do, because we're going to be part of that today. I'm going to take time to share. Like, I know you guys really well, but I should know you better. And the reality is, Lindsay and I are never here for Christmas. In the 20 years, 20 plus years we've been going here, we've never been here for a Christmas Eve service that I can remember, or the night before, because we've always been at my parents'. And so I just want to take a moment, and I want to hear quickly or long. Good morning, Gary. We're just getting started. I want to hear your story, because I don't know your Christmas story. So here's what I want to hear. I'll go first because I had time to think about it. But just, I don't know, in 30 seconds or a minute or two or whatever. I want to hear what Christmas was for you when you were a kid. Not right now, but when you were that little boy or girl growing up in your household, what was Christmas like? So I don't, like they said, I don't know if you're watching this online, this may not be the greatest Bible study today, but maybe you'll get to hear from some of these folks. So here's mine, okay? As a kid, we moved around in the Air Force, and I remember Christmas being magic. It had nothing to do with Christ. So I think sometimes people go, oh, everybody's miserable on Christmas without Jesus. Kind of step back and think, you can still enjoy the holiday very much from a worldly perspective. But it was magic, and I remember it was magic because of the family and the atmosphere and just the time of year, right? I think if we did Christmas in August, I would have a different perception of what Christmas feels like. But it was always cold, in North Dakota especially. And then we would travel as a kid growing up through elementary and junior high and high school. We would go to my grandparents in Idaho. And I just remember that. I only have 2 cousins. Isn't that crazy? Only one of my parents' siblings had kids. And I remember we would get together, all the kids, my family, the 2 cousins, we would sleep downstairs, everybody upstairs, and we'd have this Christmas tree, and that was right in my grandma's house in the living room. And it would be sparks underneath. And then parents would usher us downstairs, go to bed, come on, Santa Claus won't get here if you don't fall asleep, all that stuff. And we'd wake up and all of a sudden they had unloaded all the gifts. And I remember getting He-Man, and G.I. Joe. And one year we got bikes. I got a red one. They were just plain Jane, just like a this aluminum frame or something. Somebody got a blue one, somebody got a green one. And I can just remember these different Christmases. But all the family was together. And it was very traditional. Santa was a part of it until we found gifts sneaking around earlier in elementary school. They're already from Santa. Anyways, that was my experience growing up. So I don't know how we're gonna do this. Ronnie, do you want to go next? We'll just sweep down. What was your Christmas like as a kid?
When I was very young, we lived on a street that was a dead end. There were tracks at the dead end, and there was a lot of kids on the block. And one of my favorite memories of Christmas, we didn't go to church or anything like that when I was really little, but one of my favorite memories is that there were a lot of the adults and kids on the block that would come out and we would Christmas carol around the block and sometimes around the corner to the other block. And so that was just a lot of fun to, as a group, right there where I lived, get together and do Christmas carols.
So you join up with them?
Oh, yeah.
Your whole
It was all, well, not my dad, but
Yeah.
I think it was probably my mom and my siblings and
Yeah.
at least the 4 younger siblings. And yeah, and we Christmas carol. And I always thought that was really cool because you don't see that today. People,
Yeah.
groups from the block or whatever going around Christmas caroling.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. But the other thing was that there were 5 kids and then mom and dad. And so even though, my parents really didn't have a lot of money, but my mom was, amazing. She always made so many treats and she decorated everything. It was just really pretty. And we would just have a ton of presents for us under the tree, which seemed like a ton.
Yeah.
And, and then when we were all done unwrapping, my mom wasn't the kind where you unwrap and you put the trash in the garbage each time, it was just a mountain
Yeah.
of presents and trash and ribbons and bows and stockings and kids and putting things together. And so it was just kind of really chaotic, but it was fun. And, we played Christmas music and my mom made all kinds of treats. And so, yeah, as very young, it was really, really fun memories of that. But then when I was 8, we moved to a different part of town and we didn't ever go there. So I missed that. But we always did have family gatherings up until we had kids. And then, and I always enjoyed that because that was kind of crazy, Christmas chaotic too, at one of like my sister's house or something. And so that was really good memories. But then when the kids got just a little bit older, it's like all of that quit. And then we didn't hardly ever get together, all of us as a family anymore. But as a kid, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think you're right. I think that whole family thing, whether you're a Christian or not, family's important to most people. In regards to caroling, I remember my wrestling coach used to get this. My wrestling coach was a Christian. And he would get us together on like December 22nd or 23rd, and it was a workout. He had strategically, Lakeside's a big community, like it's a lot of houses spread out. He would strategically run us. Okay, we're going down to the Millers. That's 1.2 miles. And we'd all be sweating up. We'd show up, and saying, "Joy to the world." Off the next house. I'm glad you had a cool caroling experience. All right, Jeremy. Good morning, fans. We're just sharing what Christmas was like as a kid.
All right.
Get ready for it. All right. I can't wait to hear it.
So growing up in Alaska, so every Christmas was a white Christmas, but we only spent about 50% of our Christmases in Alaska. The other were in Portland. So it was either raining or snowing.
Yeah.
So it was never warm out on Christmas. So we had that cold experience, but we didn't have any like traditions except that when we went to Portland, we went to everyone's house. Like every grandparent, aunt and uncle, it was like, so Christmas Eve would be at like 3 different families' houses and we'd spend like 4 hours at each. So it'd be an all day thing. I remember being really tired. Can we go home now?
Yeah.
But yeah, so not really any traditions per se, but I remember one Christmas, me and my sister, when my parents, just before Christmas, I think they went to on a vacation, a Hawaii vacation in December. And we got into the toys in their closet that they had got before they left because they weren't going to have much time when they got back. And we're like, oh, I know what I'm getting. I know what I'm getting. And Christmas morning, when we went to open everything, it was completely different. They knew that we got into everything, took everything back, and got something else.
Hey.
And it was, yeah, I remember being very disappointed that it wasn't, because I was like, that's exactly what I wanted. And
That's what you get for people.
Man, I gotcha. Yeah, man, good stuff. Thanks for sharing. I remember as a kid, like, Bart, what do you think? This is right here. It's about half a pound. It's shaped, I'm just
Right.
trying to figure it out. But again, they hit a lot of it. Okay. Paul, how about you?
Mine was kind of similar to yours, listening to yours. There was no religion in my house growing up, so it was all completely secular.
Yep.
My parents were really big on getting us as much as they possibly could. And looking back, I think they probably used credit a lot of the time because I don't think they ever had the money for it. Christmas Eve night, we had a copy of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." So every year on Christmas Eve, we read that. And I remember when my sister was old enough, one year, my brother and I just found the picture a few months ago, actually, that my parents had her read it to us, but she was deaf, so she'd be signing, and they got a picture of both of us listening. But we'd read that every year on Christmas Eve. It was usually just our family because we didn't live close enough to grandparents, aunts, and uncles. But there was one or two with all the family when I was too little to remember. So most of this that I remember was by the time we were in Portland. So we lived in a part of Portland that was on the outskirts of some bigger, older, fancy houses, this huge neighborhood. So every Christmas Eve, we would go for a walk through all those houses because pretty much all of them put up lots of Christmas lights.
Yeah.
And of course, I remember as a kid thinking, why do we have to go walking and look at all these lights? Can't we just hurry and go to bed so Santa can come? But looking back now, I really miss having Christmas lights to see. So I'm glad that they made us do that. But it was just to wear us out because ours was the same. It was sparse under the tree all the way through from just things that a grandparent or two would send. We'd go to bed and in the morning, it was like, holy moly, it's overflowing everywhere. There's stuff everywhere. They were huge.
And I think a lot of that is because of sounds like your grandma is to perpetuate this Santa Claus thing.
Yes.
Like, he is real.
Right, because my parents were big on that. So one year the house had a fireplace. There was a couple boot prints across the carpet.
Oh.
One year, I made a pillow for Santa, and the next day the pillow's gone, and there's this lovely handwritten letter that is not my parents' handwriting.
Oh, they stepped up their game.
They really did. And then they'd always put names on the different presents, not just from Santa, but they would do I had one year, and for the life of me, I don't remember what the present was, but my mom always thought of things that kind of related to it. So one of my presents was from the Misfit Elf. And then she reminded me of this the other day. I'd forgotten. Do you remember the year that we put other kids' names on all the presents? And I'm like, no, I don't. That was a nasty trick.
Oh.
But then they loved the surprise of it, and they loved kind of tricking us when they could. So they would wrap things in different sizes stuff so that we couldn't figure it out as easy. Along with what he did finding the presents one year, once we, realized that, Santa wasn't real. This is all mom and dad. Got old enough that they're like, we don't want to stay up until the middle of the night wrapping presents, putting them out. And I'm the little brat kid that's like, no, you have to. I want to be surprised on Christmas morning. But I remember finding in the stuff one year, they just had it piled in their room before they started kind of hiding it. And it was a sheet covering it. And the story that they tell me is that they had it drawn out how the sheet was. So they knew if we looked. Well, I saw this pink, telephone, and it was for me. But they knew I'd seen it. And so I felt so bad. And, they told me they took it back and then they didn't. So I opened it Christmas morning, and the guilt was horrible. It almost would have been better if it had just gone back. But so it was all about surprise and really pulling along that idea of Santa and everything. But it was neat how they did it. I look back and I love the memory of the boot prints. I love the memory of the little letter and the pillow disappearing and all the things that they did to, I enjoy that. So
we'll see how far we get into our study today. But one of the things, the perpetuation of a lot of Christmas things that you and I do that are not satanic. There was a lot of, I'm not talking Santa Claus, just some of the other things, a Christmas tree, for instance. There's a lot of pushback made by church leaders to not do these things because of their entwinement with other pagan stuff. But when you grow up and you have this experience, like Lindsay and I had to then debate, like, are we gonna do this with our kids? And she grew up in a family that didn't do Santa Claus. And it was kind of like, I don't know. And we end up settling on we're not going to, but I guess I don't get out after people like, how would you do that? You know, it's like having fun, but each family has to decide themselves.
Right. And see, ours was kind of the same when we got married. It's like, but we were in the Adventist church. So we had that push of that's lying to your kids. You can't do that, you know? And I mean, you know, either way, whatever, it's the way we went. But
Yeah.
we'd always go out when I was little and cut our Christmas tree down at a Christmas tree farm the day after the weekend after Thanksgiving. And Christmas Day was always the turkey. And it's so funny because it seemed like my parents were always up so early to get everything ready and it'd cook all day long. And then we'd have this huge meal. And I'm like, it doesn't take that long to cook it all. But we'd always
You
have
guys are good.
an appetizer spread for lunch and
Yeah.
and a turkey ham big meal for dinner. And so it was all of that combined. And then we would just, that was the other thing that I really loved is the kids would get to hand out all the presents. So we'd stack them all up by everybody and then get pictures of everybody next to their stacks. And then we'd go around one at a time and open. And I mean, we went pretty quick, but
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, we did the same thing. Gave it to the most reliable older cousins to take out.
Mhm.
Glenn, you're not a kid anymore, but you're not as far removed. What do you remember?
I remember being impatient on Christmas Eve and getting up with Aram to open a lightsaber.
Yes.
So we opened them and we both got the color we wanted. And then I remember reopening them on Christmas Day and we each got the different colors that we didn't want.
Did you trade?
Yeah, they had wrapped them in different ways or something. Yeah. Not much. There's a few times I remember that I'd get up as early as I can. I had to wake everyone up and try to be quiet enough not to wake them up. And then we'd fall asleep on the couch waiting for hours because it'd be like 4 a.m.
yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
Did they have a certain time? We do not open till 6, 7, 8, whatever.
As soon as everyone's
It was
up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Glenn. I mean, a lot of us can remember you, growing up here, and obviously you lived elsewhere when you were young. But thanks for sharing, Gary. I can't wait to hear. This is before color TVs, wasn't it?
I've been thinking about this while I've been listening to everybody, and
Yeah.
most of it's pretty similar,
Mhm.
but I could go on for hours because I'm going to try and keep it short.
It's okay. I want to hear.
Well,
We all want to hear.
okay, but in relationship to other stories, my mother moved from North Dakota or South Dakota.
Yeah.
Over to Lewiston where they ran out of money and they had 12 kids in the car. And I don't know how long it took them to get a little bit of money to get up the hill, you know how the Lewiston grade was. And so anyway, they ended up in Wenatchee. And some of my uncles and aunts are kind of spread out between Lewiston and Spokane. And one of my uncles drowned in the Snake River, the river next going into Lewiston. And he was working on Christmas Eve and trucking into the river. And that happened when I was in high school. But for the most part, to the similarities of everybody else, I woke up and I couldn't wait to get up because I wanted to open presents.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has that feeling on Christmas morning. And well, that kind of changed over the years where from lots of presents as we got older, there's fewer presents. And then as we got older and out of the house, it was, well, everybody pick a name and we'll get one.
Yes, that's where we're at.
Yeah. And so I think that's similar with everybody. My mother, she spent a lot of time on Christmas. She would paint on the windows in the house, like the nativity or a Christmas scene with water paints. And my mom kind of more or less grew up in a Catholic background where every winter, even when I was in high school, she was writing a letter to Father Joby back in South Dakota. Anyway, my dad was a Presbyterian. I only say that because that's where we went when we moved from Equator. We were going to the Presbyterian church.
Yeah.
And then when we moved to Royal City, nobody would go in the church, so they would go with friends that would ask them to go. And so we would go to the community church, and then I finally ended up going to the Lutheran church, and that's kind of where Leslie and I.
And so then
You mean Soap Lake?
Salt Lake. Yes, thank you.
fact checking, okay.
Yeah, I should let him continue.
I don't care, you're doing great, I love your.
Anyway, my mom really dived into Christmas cooking, a lot of cookies.
Yeah.
And she finally figured out that I was finding the cookie where she was hiding.
Oh,
And other than that, she still kind of said only take home. She would have a thermos that was like a, I don't know what you call it, was a big thermos, it was like this round and this tall. And she'd fill it full of sugar cookies,
Oh.
frosting on.
Oh.
And there were, Christmas cookies, stamped
Yes,
with Santa
oh.
Clauses or stars or ears or
it's
whatever.
dangerous.
And anyway, getting back to Christmas, we would take turns opening presents. And we had to read who it was from and whatnot. And I had two sisters. And I would pretty much spent my whole life growing up waiting for my sister to make the first move because I wasn't allowed
Yeah.
to make that move. Like going down and opening presents. They never liked to get up, so I had to.
He was the youngest.
I was the
Uh-huh.
youngest, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so it was kind of I must have been the only one that really wanted to get up and go. They still want to.
Yeah,
Oh.
getting their beauty rest.
Yeah, so. Anyway. There was a lot of good times at Christmas. Especially my mom liked to decorate. We decorated the whole outside and inside of the house.
Yeah.
Oh, and lights.
Cool. Thanks, Gary. Thanks for taking a moment to bring us back to your youth. All right, the other grandfather in here. Here we go. Well, there's more than grandfathers, but
I want to talk to you about ice skating on this
okay,
between services or something.
okay,
But anyway, Christmas is the topic.
yeah,
We would always go to church on Christmas Eve. And then when we come home, church, and all the presents would be under the tree by magic, I guess. Not some from Santa, but mostly parents.
Yeah.
They would magically appear. And I always wondered how that happened. But my dad was always the first one. I'll also show you how old I am. My dad was always the first one out of the house whenever we went anywhere because he had to crank the car to start it. I kid you not.
Wow.
And so, but on Christmas Eve, he was always the last one in out to the car. There must have been a correlation, there,
okay.
but
Saw
I
that.
never quite figured it out.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So, then that's it.
Thanks, buddy. All right, Pastor Tim.
A few times we stayed home, usually go back to my mom's parents. My other grandparents always were in Texas. And we'd go up there and they lived in a little house. the kitchen, and then the living room is right there. Their living room is like our living room with gardens. I mean, and on top of that, they've got a big oil stove that sticks out from the wall on one side, so it takes up a lot of space. And there's a piano over here. All of that part of the story. And we would, and then the Christmas tree over by this window. And we always had soup. Whether we were at home or at grandma's, we always had soup for Christmas. And we'd eat soup, and when we're done, my sister and I was like, we get open presents. We always open presents on Christmas. And we're all so excited.
All the presents just one.
All the presents on Christmas. That's what we did. And my dad would always, we getting up, we're done eating, and my dad would go, Tim and Chris, you're washing dishes. So we gotta wash all the dishes before we can go in there, and we just like, oh, we're gonna die before we get open presents. Kids are so dramatic. And then we go in the other room and we'd sit down. Now we're gonna open presents. And then Uncle Glenn would go, we're gonna read Luke 2.
Yep.
And he would either read it or eventually he memorized it and quote it. And you'd sit there and you're thinking, oh, this is gonna take forever, you know. Well, it wasn't even the whole chapter because you're only reading the Christmas part of it out of it, you know, and he's reading this. And so you're listening to that. And then I remember a time or two that my great grandma Tina would then say, I would like to hear Chris and Tim sing a song. And my mom would get up and go sit at the piano and pull something out. We'd have to stand there and now we've got to sing choreograph for Grandma Tina. And then we open presents. And you're all crammed, all the family crammed into that little living room, tearing into your presents and everything. The kids are always all on the floor first. And then, so you're playing, and the guys all eventually retire to the kitchen table where they've got it. I never know when their game of Risk ended because we were all in. And there was no room in Grandma and Grandpa's house. There were 2 little bedrooms upstairs. So as kids all would sleep in sleeping bags out in the hallway upstairs. So all the cousins, and there wasn't a lot of cousins, but we were all in the hallway and sleeping up there. And then, whether you're at home or at Grandma's, Christmas morning, you always had a stocking. And it was just usually, for me, it was like one of my white sweat socks, you know. And there was always an orange and some candy. And then you always had a small toy in there, like the thing of silly putty or a slinky. Almost always, every year. It's almost always. I think one year I got a set of jacks, which I hated because I didn't have the coordination for jacks. But yeah, that was. And then you got Christmas dinner, which, you know, probably like everybody else's, except because my grandma was Norwegian, sometimes would include for her Uncle Art, my grandma's uncle, lutefisk, which is the stinkiest, nastiest fish you've ever had. And that wasn't the only dish because a lot of people hated it. But my dad's rule was if somebody serves it, you eat some of it. It's rude to turn anything down to somebody else's fish.
Can I just eat that slinky over there?
Right.
Yeah.
I'll pass. Thank you, Gary, for the offer.
Thanks for sharing about those stockings. I forgot. That's
Yeah.
a big part of ours too. My grandma would knit. And I'm not talking small little like cutoff socks. We're talking fireman, firefighter boot size. And now we got to hit that dollar store pretty heavy.
Yeah.
By we, I mean my wife has got it.
Yeah, we had stockings too, but we had the same, it was like regular Christmas size stocking, but we had them before I could remember, and it was the same stocking every year, and there was always an orange in the bottom. Some candy dispersed out, some small toys,
I wonder
and
what the
yeah,
history of it is of the orange being.
I don't know. So I've done that with my kids too. There's always a orange in the bottom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, either
Yeah.
California
And something healthy in the midst
They
of all the
did
candy.
control of the
It helps
smell
smell instead of all the toys.
Well, that, and I've heard that you go back a few years, getting fruit was just a hard thing. Like where I grew up, I mean, it's not like we had an abundance of fruit.
Yeah.
It's pretty special, I guess.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, and the stocking. My mom used to give us kids these uncracked, hard, like shelled hazelnuts, Brazil nuts,
Yeah.
walnuts, and almonds, and they were all hooked.
Yes.
So that we would be busy trying to crack these nuts all day. And yeah, we had those crazy things in there. I told myself, I'm never gonna get one of those.
My dad loved those. We'd have a dish of them out all through the holiday season with the metal nutcrackers, you know?
Yeah,
It was always kind of fun to do a few, but yeah,
Me too.
I forgot about that.
They did.
Yeah.
Were they really that good?
No.
All right, my lovely wife, what do you got?
We never had stockings growing up, so I like having stockings now. No, we go to my one grandma's on Christmas Eve and do dinner, and we had one cousin on that side and she was super shy, so. there
That was-
a lot of kids,
that
And it
was-
was always one of those grandmas that you just smiled at the gift and said, thank you. But you really didn't like it. Like I remember getting jammies that had lace like everywhere and it was so itchy. Like you try it on for her and it was like,
Can we take it off?
it's funny because my mom mentioned that the other time when I was talking to her. She's like, I don't ever want to be that grandma. Remember we'd go over there and you guys would be so nice, but I knew you didn't like any of the girls. She was sweet. She just, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was Christmas Eve and Christmas week and the other grandmas. But a lot, yeah.
Highly Christian, though. I mean, as far as
Yeah, I don't, it's funny because I don't ever remember going to like a Christmas Eve service at all. But it was, oh, yeah, I mean, my grandpa would read. But yeah, it was,
thanks, honey. All right, Mrs. Fanning.
Well, I would say, even though my dad was a pastor,
Yeah.
I don't feel like we swayed one way or the other too much. I don't feel like he said Santa Claus is evil and there's no such thing.
Mhm.
But I know that we would always talk about the Bible story and the point of celebrating Christmas.
Mhm.
I don't remember thinking Santa was real necessarily, but my dad liked Christmas music and decorating. He loved liking Santa Claus, so.
Yeah.
That's, you know, the fun story like the Easter Bunny. You know, it's not real, but you can pretend that the Easter Bunny is just to sell, you know, eggs and Santa brings you presents or whatever. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. So my grandparents who lived across the country would always send my parents a lot of money. I guess it was a lot of money back then.
Mhm.
And we would wake up in the morning and our tree would just be like literally like a pile. of just a bunch of presents.
Yeah.
And I don't think I realized for a long time that this is normal.
Yeah.
But I don't think it really mattered to me. Like now we have Christmas and we buy people a couple of things and the boys are like, I don't need anything. You don't need to get me anything. I don't need stuff, mom. But so, you know, I don't think that changed how I do Christmas or anything, but we didn't really have too many traditions. But I do remember the most memorable gift I think I had was my mom snuck in her room. I don't know when she found the time, but she handmade me like a whole wardrobe of little tiny Barbie clothes.
No.
And she handmade those because one year my grandparents hadn't given us so much money. And I still remember that as like one of my most memorable gifts. So
That's a great gift.
I think they managed to balance, you know, the religion and the fun of the holiday and also having a lot and not having a lot and still also managed to have a really good time.
Yeah. It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Josh,
Well,
Gary fact check this as well.
That's what I was gonna say.
I should record. Growing up in our house, it was definitely Satan Claus. In younger years, we would always get done with work, store would close just like it does now, early. So we all jump in the white Cadillac and drive to Soap Lake.
Yeah.
And stores closed for the next day and a half, so we're with family. Christmas Eve would be at Grandma Fanning's in Soap Lake, the place I was.
Okay.
Not when I was a kid though. Later.
Not sure if it's-
Yeah.
So we would all, like, dad's sisters and their kids often would show up that night too, and we'd have Fanning Christmas at Grandma Fanning's house. And that was always fun. I can still remember every year my grandpa's not supposed to have this and that because he's sure to have that. And my grandma was always, you know, dad was saying how only two
He
cookies.
married his mom.
Watching the calendar, counting the calories. But grandma was in charge of making sure he followed the doctor's orders. But every year for Christmas, he would get a salami, a big old stick of salami from one of the grandkids, and a big old hunk of cheese. And then we'd have ice cream, you know. And he was always real happy, you know, because that's what he wanted. So then we wake up the next morning and we jump back in the car and drive the 20 minutes east to Stratford and have the Schwab family Christmas at the old schoolhouse there.
all my mom's siblings would be there with all their kids. It'd be quite a gathering of people. All the kids go down to the dungeon in the basement and create havoc, and all the adults upstairs would debate the topics of the news and the religion and everything under the sun. And, so yeah, and then there'd be a talent show, of course. Grandma Schwab, Grandma Schwab would want you to play your instrument, or play the piano, sing, dance, whatever.
That was Christmas Eve or what day? Was
Christmas Day.
that? Christmas Day.
And that would go all day long.
Wow.
Yeah, you get there early in the morning and have a big feast. If you're not familiar with the house she lived in, it's the old schoolhouse built in the 19, early 19. It's on the National Historic Register. And the bottom floor is like the dungeon, and the second floor is like the cafeteria, and they're just massive, like 20-foot ceiling. I mean, it's just very different. And then the upstairs is like the gymnasium and their bedroom.
Yeah.
The gymnasium was their bedroom. Just very, and then the locker room to the side of the gymnasium was their bathroom. So we would just like all over that house, all the grandkids, just like the 30, 40 of us, however many there are, and all of, just play hide and seek all over the house. And usually my grandpa Schwab would be handing out some denomination of cash to all the grandkids. And we're like, all right. And so anyway, yeah, we remember that. But at our personal family Christmas, it was usually, as we got older, it became more our personal family, like the family at our house. And as every family gets older, that kind of generally happens. You start doing your own traditions, not so with the one side of the family. But it was read the Christmas story. We had to work for our presents. We had to, and this is from probably, I don't know, 11, 10 years old on. We'd have to take a prophecy from the Old Testament. My mom would say a prophecy from the Old Testament, and we'd have to say where it was fulfilled about Christ, and then we got to open it. Well, we had it all memorized that after a couple years.
Yeah.
So,
Which is a great, thanks for sharing that, John. Great segue at the end there. I'm just gonna erase this.
you erase all of it, it doesn't matter.
Just decipher. The follow-up question, if we had a 2-hour class, you know what? I just got to know you guys a little better. I appreciate you sharing. It is cool to hear each of your stories. The follow-up question that we're not gonna do it, but is what's Christmas look like today? How is it similar? Is it different? And a lot of it comes from we're trying to carry on some of the traditions of our family, maybe. Maybe you're trying not to carry on any of them. But then you're adding to it. For those of us that I hear that didn't involve Christ, like how do we do that? Honestly, I don't know if I do it as well as I could. You feel like going to honor God. It's his son's birthday-ish. And maybe there's some hustle and bustle there that we could do a better job. Okay, in the time we have, which is not much, quickly. Again, I didn't know how long this would go. I got stuff for another hour and a half. As you look at Christmas today, can we agree that there's a meshing of secular and Christian for sure? Like, okay, so when you that pen is not working. When you look at Christmas today, let's make a quick list, and maybe I'll do part 2 on the backside of this. Okay, what are things that we do today? What are traditions, secular or not, that you would say you only do this during Christmas time? Maybe the month of December, or whatever it is, that is a big part of your Christmas experience. Maybe non-believers do it as well. What are some things that we do here in American society that to say, hey, this is Christmas?
Shopping.
Okay.
Mad shopping, yes.
For sure. So there's this huge economic impact. In fact, even the date of Christmas, we get into that part of the study, has been talked about. Well, maybe we should move it. make it maybe. No, I don't think many scholars believe that December 25th is actually a birthday. But to move that and the economic impact that is pretty significant. So there's a lot that actually goes behind this whole shopping idea. What else is classic American Christmas?
There's another thing too that's become even more popular than when I was little, and that's the whole, almost like a competition of Christmas lights on the house.
Yes.
And you go out driving and look at all the different Christmas lights.
And who gets up earliest?
Yeah, yeah.
And some of these things on your list, I actually have the history of lights. We're gonna put these things up here today, and then on the back end, the next time we meet, we're gonna look at some of the background on some of this stuff. Just talk about where it come from, why it's part of Christmas. Okay, lights, big time.
Christmas movies and music.
Okay.
I forgot that growing up. We always watched A Christmas Story,
Yeah.
National
yeah.
Lampoon's Christmas Vacation,
We watched.
Ernest Saves Christmas.
Charlie
Those
Brown
were free,
Christmas.
honey.
Yeah, those were the kinds that my parents went with.
That's what we watched.
We didn't usually do the White Christmas or any of that. We were the others.
Yep, for sure. What else?
Trees.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We know how long Christmas trees been going around here? Is it since,
It started, since we moved here because, it seemed like all of a sudden, I think it was, Bob Murphy put in, I don't know how many acres, but just
Christmas
wow.
trees? Yeah, we're gonna look at it. It's really interesting, and I probably don't have all the facts, but when were the first Christmas lots tree lots in America? When were the first Christmas trees actually put into homes? Kind of cool, interesting. Why were they put into homes? Interesting.
Oyster soup on Christmas.
I am not gonna write that down. That is not traditional.
Christmas stockings.
I should add. I'll add this. Okay.
Christmas stockings.
Yeah. I don't hang socks. My wife's like, you left one on the couch last week. I don't typically hang socks. We don't. Once a year, we get these things up, and they're part of our Christmas experience for sure.
It probably falls under others, or it could, but ornaments, whether, a lot of people, they'll buy one for that year. I know growing up, my parents had this set that every year without fail, that set put out a new one. So I've got a whole case of them now that I have from them growing up, but we've kind of done the same thing. I get them each one every year, and then we've made one every year because a lot of the time when they were younger, we didn't have a ton of money. And I wanted them, the idea was I've got ones that my parents gave me, or not they gave me, but I remember having as a kid that we had made in school. And so then with these guys, we've made one each year, each of us. And so we've got all these little sets. So every year we pull them out and, oh, look, this was this year and this was yours. And
Don't you love the ones that have a little photo or something?
Yeah.
Or something to hang.
yeah, we've got lots
Guess
of
what
those.
you're gonna get to do when you move out of the house. Here you go, spoon. Start your next tradition. Yep. That's what happens. All right, what else?
Travel.
Oh, man, okay.
In bad weather.
Kind of goes along with this. And it is, it's Christmas time where, and in a good way, it does bring families together, whether you celebrate Christ or not. A lot of people travel to do such.
Gift exchange. I don't know if it's the same as shopping, but
No, that's,
Different.
okay, we got time for a few more.
Closing businesses,
Oh, yeah, stores are closed on Christmas.
economic.
Okay. So, yeah, I think that's a standalone. So it's actually it's a national what?
Holiday.
It's a holiday. 2 L's,
One.
1 L. Thank you.
Unless you're a Chinese restaurant.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I wondered
Gas
if a lot of
station.
people have Chinese on Christmas.
And by the way, I did see that there are 2 round table pizzas in the Tri-Cities. I looked them up when you said
Oh,
that.
that are
Is that
open.
right?
And one, yeah,
That are open or?
I don't know if they're
Okay.
on Christmas.
Colin, you just reminded me, the one that I mentioned, Caroline.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm. So we'll look at when did it become a national
It's funny,
holiday.
holiday looks wrong, doesn't it?
Caroling.
Holiday looks wrong, but I know it's not.
Okay, all right, let me give you, because we're up against the clock. Okay, you guys are missing a couple really important ones.
Candy canes.
Yeah.
That just popped into my head. That's,
I'm gonna put that right here because this actually goes along with this.
yeah.
Candy canes.
Oh.
But that's the one that I can think of that over the last several years, I've learned that a lot of people, and I don't know if it was originally that way, have put a spin of Christianity is
Into
what
it.
that came from.
Yes, actually, a number of these things.
Are they?
All the way from ornaments on up to candy canes. Initially, they actually were an ornament, and then we'll share with you next time when they came to mass manufacturing due to automation,
Mhm.
and then it became also something obviously that you don't need to put on your tree. You just buy that 12-pack and hand them out in the classroom or wherever you. Okay. Come on, you guys. You're missing like what do most kids?
Ben,
Manger.
Hey man,
What?
you're getting Christian on me.
he said manger. the
Oh,
manger.
manger. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
and above the manger, we'll put his uncle. How do you spell Claus?
CLAUS.
Just making sure you guys. Or as Josh says, I'm not gonna say it on the video, Josh. Okay. This is a huge. I mean, come on, you guys. That should have been like over here.
Yeah, it should have.
It's completely commercialized. Anybody do a calendar where you?
Oh, the advent calendar?
Okay.
We never- we never did.
Oh, we used to do that.
Chevy Chase did it.
Yeah.
Should have chased it.
Christmas star.
What is it?
Are you wanting the like really obvious one? Opening presents. I don't know if you're looking.
Actually, we got it. I'm gonna put that here. Gift exchange, yep, opening. Pastor Tim, how about for you as a pastor, what do you do different maybe this week or the day before Christmas that's maybe, is there anything that you do, just asking, or things that you have done over the years that you don't do on July 25th?
I share things on a daily basis. I do that on the blog to try to just encourage people to think about Christ in Christmas and not just presents and Santa and stuff like that. And maybe you interrupt a series. I haven't done that for a couple of years, but interrupt a series and do something on Christmas.
We're kind of interrupting your series today, right? Some churches will do, I don't know if you guys have done candlelight services
We
the
have
night before. Okay, there's all kinds of traditions. Gingerbread houses. You ever think about
We
that?
never really did those that I remember.
Did you do those? Anybody do those?
I eat
My mom
them, but I
did,
don't
yeah.
make them.
Somebody's doing them.
We did those at house.
Yeah, but growing up, I don't remember. It wasn't a yearly thing growing up, for
My
sure.
wife can,
You're still growing.
she can
Yes, I
bang it
am.
up. Okay, hey, listen, I apologize. We didn't get to the scriptures and had a day, and that's like really poor teaching. But
Are you trying to get fired?
no, I'm not. Although I might. But we set it up for next time. When we come back after Christmas, Lindsay, are we here the next Sunday? Or are we gone the next Sunday?
We're coming back.
So you're gone.
We'll be gone. So we'll have a self.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So, but when we come back, what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna kind of look at some of it's not all of these things, but where did it come from? Just because it's Christmas and we do a lot of these things. Why do we put a Christmas tree in? When was Jesus' birthday? We won't hit all of these things, but some of the history, I just spent hours kind of going, and I'm not a scholar, and you guys could do the same things, but just went through and tried to say like, where does Christmas come from? Why do we have these traditions? What traditions do you carry out? How can we involve Christ? So here's just my encouragement. All kinds of stuff going on here. You guys know it. Let's be intentional this week with our families about really making sure we give them an experience. I'm talking about our kids, maybe your grandkids, maybe whatever, that reflects Christ well, right? So with all this anxiety of hustle and bustle, do we get enough gifts? Does the display look perfect? It's like small. Big thing is making sure that we include Christ in Christmas. So let's pray and then let's go upstairs and let's have a lot of fun with our church family. Father God, thank you for Christmas. And we know that in America, we've certainly capitalized on the economic impact of it and other things. Yeah, God, as the body of Christ, we just have this unique opportunity to re-share the stories of Christ and have that uncle get up there and quote Luke 2 or whatever it may be. And so I pray for our family and I pray for each of these friends' families as we do Christmas, may we pause And may we remember and may we celebrate the advent of Christ, Emmanuel, with us. And as we go upstairs right now, guys, for everybody that's sharing, it's not about us. No, I pray that nobody would feel pressure to perform exceedingly well, but that you'd be lifted up and that you'd be honored and that we can be grateful and thankful. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, is anybody down here doing something? Have something planned for the program? You are, okay. And Gary is.
Leslie,
What?
I'm included in that, whatever.
You're included in what Leslie said.
I just have my card. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we have a skit and a song.
I have 2 homes.
I was just gonna tell you, you have to stand up front.
I can't stand up front.
You
I did
can't.
that last
He's,
year. and I
he's
get-
turning the camera. We're off on the side so everybody can see what's going on.
Clinton's telling me
Get
to
up
stand up
front.
front.
No, do it.
You know, there's a mic up there so that if people are online, like Jeff and Terry can't be here because they got their own, they're sick. They've got some stomach bug. So that way they can hear.